Hello everyone and welcome. I know that this is a video that many of you have been waiting for a long time. So today I'm going to tell you what I think about the SSL UF8. I've been using it for quite a few months now. Let's see if it's worth it. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't planning on making a video on the SSL UF8 at first, but so many of you got in touch with me on Instagram, on YouTube, even on my Q&A video I had questions about the SSL UF8, and you were asking me, number one, how is it? Is it good enough? Does it work well with Cubase? And number two, you're not using the CC121 anymore. Have you replaced it with a UF8? So today I'm going to try and answer all the questions that I've received up to this point. I'm going to tell you straight away that this is not going to be a tutorial on the SSL UF8. SSL themselves have done a great tutorial, so I'm going to link it down below if you want to know how to operate this machine, because it's quite deep. But what I'm gonna try and do on this video is give you my honest opinion on whether this controller will fulfill your needs. And I'm going to give you my own personal opinion about it as well. Now, before we get started, have you subscribed? It really helps, you know this. So, if you like this video, hit the like. If you really like it, use the super thanks button down there to support me. And if you want to check out one of my instruments, right here, this is another way to support me. So thank you in advance. First things first, let's talk about how this controller feels, the build quality and all these things. So I have to tell you straight away, it feels really amazing. It's really well built. It doesn't feel like a cheap controller with cheap materials. It feels really solid, nice buttons. It has a nice weight. It's quite big. That was my first impression when I took it out of the box, okay? It's quite big, and for some people this might be a problem, for some people this might be okay. For me, I would really like to have a thinner profile for this one. It's very high, the way it sits right now. SSL gives you this nice feet to kind of change the angle, but I found that it was way too high for most of the parts, so I couldn't see my analog gear in front of me. I would really like it if it was like maybe 2 centimeters thinner. That's just a minor thing, okay? Now, the most important thing I'm going to tell you straight away, and this is probably why you'll be getting a controller like this, is the faders and the fader quality. And I have to say, these faders are probably the best faders I've ever seen. They're absolutely up to par with the CC121. They're super fast, but let me show you how quickly these faders fly, right? So, fly test. So they're ridiculously fast, and you know, for the speeds that they update, I think it's remarkable that they are so quiet. I would think that if you wanted to make something quieter than this, it would have to bump the costs 2 times or 3 times the price. Touch sensitive, of course, same with the pots here. Very good quality. They don't wobble, just a tiny bit of wobble, but you won't find it disturbing or anything like that. The screen is really good, and you can see it from any kind of angle. I want to start with the positives here because I think that this controller is really good and really well made. Now, when it comes to Cubase, SSL designed it very well, but I'm going to tell you a big problem with that I personally have. Let me show you how I use it, right? Because I've been using it for several months now. I didn't want to make a video before I actually used it. So I have these quick buttons here. As you can see, I can turn up my mixer, I can open my channel settings, and with this one, number 3, I can bring up my virtual instruments if I have one loaded. So that's pretty cool. 3 buttons. The other very cool thing that I think SSL has, when you bring up the mixer, if you check here, you can have different mixer configurations in Cubase. If you don't know about it, let me know. I'm gonna make a video. It's such an amazing feature. So, for example, as you can see, I have quite a few configurations. I have my basic configuration, I have my buses configuration that will only show me the buses, and I also have my recording configuration where I only see the inputs. Now, the great thing with the SSL UF8 is that you can use these buttons right here to recall these mixer configurations. So, as you can see, number 1, let's go for my buses. If I just want to do my processing on the buses, for example, I can go here, and as you can see, I only have my buses and my sound effects. Now if I go 6, I have my inputs only, so I can switch very, very quickly between these things. And I think this is a great thing that SSL decided to do this when it comes to Cubase, because this is really, really useful, and it's a very unique feature in Cubase. So I'm very, very happy about this. Then we have these soft keys here, and I'm going to leave them for a little bit later because I want to tell you what my problem is with these soft keys here. But I want to go here into this dial here, and this is actually where you can start selecting your channels and browsing through your channels. So you can do it like this, one channel at a time, or you can do it using the bank buttons here. So as you can see, this is by groups of 8, and this is one channel at a time. Most of the times I use this, to be honest with you. Next, we have the navigation. So this means that you can navigate throughout your project. And then we have the focus control, which is really cool because what you can do is you can turn it into like a semi-AI knob. It's not exactly the same. It kind of reminds me of the knob controller here, but it doesn't have all the features that the knob controller has. So as you can see, I can go like this. I can control my gain reduction here, or maybe I can control my release. So whatever I hover my mouse at, I can control it. I'll be honest with you, I don't really use these functions. I use this mainly to navigate through my channels. Next, we have these controls here, and this can perform different functions. So you can say, okay, I want to go up and down my channels, or go left and right and select events. This pretty much works like your keyboard arrows. And that's why I don't really use it again. I prefer to use my keyboard for these kind of things. It doesn't really offer me something more. By the way, this is not a criticism for the UF8. Most controllers that I've used use the same exact thing. And I'm going to tell you what the problem with most controller is, in my opinion. Now, if you press this button, what happens is you can actually zoom in and zoom out vertically and horizontally, which is really nice. Actually, this is not a bad thing. This, I find it very, very useful. Next, we have the selection mode. As you can see, I can select my channels like this using the select button there. But if I engage the rec mode, when I select a channel, I'm actually arming it for recording. So I can arm as many channels as I want, which is pretty cool. Now, this button here does nothing. And here's what bothers me sometimes with this controller. There are some things that simply do nothing when it comes to Cubase, and I feel that this is a missed opportunity. So this does nothing. This channel button, please let me know if I'm missing something, but doesn't do anything. Why? It could be a sign in so many useful things. Next, we have the automation section, which is again something that does nothing for Cubase. So trim, latch, touch does nothing. But we have the read and write, which is cool. And you can turn it off, which does nothing. So basically for this section, you can only utilize these buttons. These 4 buttons do nothing. So this kind of bothers me, to be honest with you, but that's not my biggest problem. It is part of the problem that I'm going to talk about later on. Let's talk about some cool stuff though. Here we have the V-Pod. As you can see, we have quite a few things. You can select your sense, your EQ, your channel strip, your VST instruments, the name of the track, the routing, the inserts, and the master insert. Now let's go to my guitars, for example. Here, as you can see, I have a slap verb, and if I select my effect sense, now I can control this. Now, a very cool thing that the UF8 has, like many controllers of this type, is this flip button here. Basically, when you push this, pretty much everything that you can control here, you can control using the faders, which I find really cool, especially when automating reverbs. Now, this is something that the CC121 couldn't do, and this is another reason why a Nate fader controller could become in handy, because you could actually control all these sends at the same time, which I find really useful, especially when you do a lot of parallel processing with parallel compressors, parallel saturation, and all these things. You could have all these things here, and you can actually start blending, which is something that I did in my mixing with waves video. I'm going to link it right here. I was actually mixing all these parallel processings in using the UF8. So this is really amazing. I love this. Now you will notice that I haven't talked about a very important thing up to this point, and this is the transport control. Now, as you will see, there are no dedicated buttons for transport. Okay? Well, not really. There is transport controls, and this is where we come to these soft keys. When I press these soft keys, I'm going to get different functions on this top row of buttons. Okay, so number one is indeed the transport control. So stop, play, forward, rewind, cycle, all these things work fine in Cubase. My big problem with this is that they're completely out of reach. Like if I'm recording right here, right, I'm away and I want to press stop and start, I have to reach out like this in order to just do a simple stop and play operation. And I think this is not well thought. The transport for every single controller, it should be down here. This to me looks like an afterthought. Okay, so it's not a big deal for me because I use a keyboard for my transport most of the times. I never assign something to my transport. I have all these beautiful controllers here, as you can see, my monogram, my knob. I never use anything for the transport. So it's not a big deal for me. But if you want to rely on something like this for transport control, I don't think this is very convenient because you always have to be like that. You might hit the faders, you might hit the knobs. It's too far when you're recording. I would rather see these top row buttons disappear and have everything right here and actually dedicated transport controls, not soft buttons. The other thing that, I would really like to see is at least we have them there, and I think this might be something that SSL can do. Just have them illuminated so I know that this is a record, make it red. Make this green. I don't need to press it to figure out that this is the play or just check out the screen. So this is another thing. Like I said, not a big deal for me, but I want to give you my full experience after using this controller for a long, long time. If I go to 2, you see we have quite a few things there. We have previous, next, and so on and so forth. Punch in, solo defeat, undo, redo. Again, like I said, I never see myself using all these things because these I can do on my keyboard, and doing this gesture every time, I'm never gonna do this. So this is a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Now, it's time for me to give you my biggest and ultimate complaint when it comes to the UF8, but this is not just for the UF8. The problem with the UF8 is that, like most other controllers, they use Mackie control to control Cubase. Mackie control is a protocol that has been around for many years, it's been around for ages. But I think that it shows its age right now. And I think that I would like to see manufacturers create something that's bespoke for a DAW that they support. Maybe support less DAWs, but support the DAWs that you do in a very well integrated way. This works the same with Logic, I think even with Logic it's Mackie control and so on and so forth. But let me show you the biggest problem that I have, okay? Let's say I'm on track 1 and I'm working on my kick drum and I want to go here to my orchestra. I do this all the time. I jump between channels all the time. And orchestra is channel 95. So I click on the orchestra and check this. It doesn't follow. If I want to control anything when it comes to the orchestra, I have to do this. Check it out. Check how long it will take me. And now I have to figure out which one it is as well. Okay, it's this one. And now I can start controlling my orchestra. Now, for me, this is a deal breaker when it comes to mixing. I do orchestral mixing, I do film composing, I have 300 tracks sometimes. Imagine if I have to do this all the time. To go back to my kick drum, then go back to my orchestra. It's simply not a good workflow. That's why I loved the CC121 so much, and now it's discontinued, of course. But I'm still trying to find a replacement, a good replacement, because the CC121, you would select a channel in Cubase and it would immediately jump to this. So what I would want the UF8 to do is, I'm here on my spring reverb, just take my faders where I am and I can immediately start working. Because right now, if I want to work on my snare or my drums, I have to do this, even though I have selected this in Cubase. This is not a problem with the UF8, okay? It's not a criticism of the UF8 alone, it's a criticism for pretty much every Mackie controller out there. And it's totally fine, you know, Mackie control is great, but it's 2022, come on. I want to be fair, so I'm going to mention this. Before I made this video, I reached out to SSL and I asked them about this. I said, okay, look, this is a big deal and I'm going to make a video about it and talk about it. So are there any plans to improve this behavior in Cubase? Cubase, as of right now, has no official controller out there. You know, the CC1 is discontinued. This is a great opportunity for third-party manufacturers like SSL to just say, you know, I'm going to support it, and then 8 faders, who doesn't want 8 faders? And actually I have to comment SSL on this because they were really nice, they were really responsive, and basically they told me that they have plans of improving the platform, but they cannot give me like a, you know, schedule or what's gonna be in there. So the way it is right now, this works with Mackie control, which in my opinion has these problems that I just described. Now if SSL changes this and it integrates it into Cubase in a better way, especially with the channel selection, then I promise you I'm going to make a video and let you know about it. Now this is a problem for me. It might not be a problem for you. I have many people, many friends, like Chris Alim from Mixdown Online is one of them, that it doesn't really bother him, but he has a 16 fader controller there, and this would probably require fewer bank changes like this. I simply cannot stand this kind of workflow. I'm used to mixing fast, I'm used to the CC1 workflow where everything updates and I know that what I'm looking at the screen, that's what I'm controlling, I never make mistakes. Now, to answer your question, does it replace my CC121? And the answer is simply no, absolutely not. If I had to choose between the UF8 and the CC121, well, right now you don't have many options unless you get one secondhand. I would still choose the CC121. It makes me work faster. The luxury of 8 faders doesn't make me work faster, to be honest with you. So if I had the space, my ideal setup would be CC121 and UF8, because then I would have the immediate control for the channel that I want to control with the CC121 and the UF8 just for the faders. Now, the other question that I had, and that was also in my Q&A questions video, was how about this versus the Softube Console 1? Softube actually figured out this problem and it actually updates the banks, it updates the channel straight away in Cubase. The only caveat with this is that you have to add the Console 1/Fader 1 plugin on every single channel in Cubase. And if you forget to do this, then it simply doesn't work. You won't have control over that specific channel. Which one is better? It depends, you know. When I'm working on mixing, it's very easy to open up Cubase, hold Alt and Shift, and add the same Console 1 plugin to pretty much every channel. So for mixing, I think the Softube Fader 1 would probably be quicker. Now the faders, I think the SSL faders are better. Okay, they feel more like a real fader, and I like the way that they feel. They feel like a console, where the Fader 1 doesn't feel so good, but it's not bad at any stretch of the imagination. When you're producing, you keep adding more and more channels, and then you have to keep on adding the Console 1 plugin every single time. And this is where the Fader 1 starts getting a little bit tiresome, because you have to remember, okay, add it again. And until you add it, you have no control over the fader. So in this case, the UF8 might be a little bit better. Speaking of Mackie control, I want to show you another thing that I think could be so much more improved if we were not using the Mackie control. So, okay, let's say I'm on this channel. Let me show you what you can do with a UF8. You can say, okay, I want to control my strip, okay? So now I am controlling the channel strip for this channel. So what I can do is I can say I want to activate a compressor. Now check what you have to do here. You have to go here and start turning this and see how fast it turns. It's almost impossible for me to figure out, okay, I'm gonna go to, just go into gate. See that? So I have to be super precise to go, I missed it, you know? I missed it. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Let me know if you know. And the same goes for insert. Press this plugin, I can just select the insert, and it's so hard to select it seriously. Like, okay, I just selected the Abbey Road reverb. Now, here's another thing. When you go to the page, let's say I want to control this feedback control. Sometimes it's really hard to tell where everything is. So I have to go multiple pages in order to find the, where is it, feedback? There you go. That's the feedback, but it's on page 5 for this plugin, where if it was actually integrated with Cubase, you can actually set it up with MIDI remote once, and then this plugin will give you the most relevant parameters straight away. You can't do this here. Again, this is not a UF8 SSL specific thing. This is something that's a limitation with the Mackie control. So I think I'm gonna stop right here, and I hope that this video helps you out, figure out if this controller is right for you. It's an amazing controller. The big problem is Mackie control. So maybe SSL would change that. Maybe SSL will support Cubase in a more kind of integrated way with more tight control over the parameters and actually take advantage of all these beautiful buttons that are here. Now, I'm waiting for SSL to integrate this better in Cubase, and this might just be very close to my dream controller, and this might replace my CC121. I hope you enjoyed this video, my friends. Let me know what you think about the SSL UF8, if you have one, if you're happy with it, how you use it, any tips or tricks you can share with the Cubase community. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, use the super thanks button, or maybe you want to pick up one of my instruments right here. Thank you so much, my friends, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!